Today, I am thrilled to be talking with Paul Tieger, behavioural scientist and internationally best-selling co-author of Do What You Are. Hello, I'm Samantha Mackay, lead trainer at Truity, and at a time when so many of us are looking to find meaning and fulfillment in our work, Paul literally wrote the book on using our authentic selves and our personality type to find our true calling. With more than 1 million copies sold, the book transformed the field of career counselling, showing how personality type is an essential part of finding joy and lifelong fulfillment at work. In the midst of a great resignation, the book is more relevant than ever. Earlier this year, Paul collaborated with his daughter Kelly Tieger to publish the 6th edition updated for the modern workplace. In short, the insights of our guest today could not come at a better time. Paul, I'm so excited to be talking to you today about your book, Do What You Are, and learning more about how we can apply our insights about our personality to our careers, especially at a time when so many people are resigning from their job and looking for something new that doesn't leave them so feeling burned out, but more fulfilled and excited. It's so great to speak to you today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So your book, when it first came out, really revolutionized career counseling at the time. Why do you think it made such a big impact?
Well, first of all, it's been very gratifying. This book came out 25 years ago. It just came out recently in its 6th edition with my daughter as my co-author. That shows you how long we've been doing this stuff. And I think the marketplace has spoken. You know, after all these years, there's been a recognition that personality type really is a very key component in career satisfaction and success. And now we're really on our second generation of people who have found this to be so useful. So I think people are looking for fulfillment, and the old ways, the old measurements that we used to use really don't work. But personality type is inborn. So I think that's a big part of it. And the other part of it is that, you know, newer folks or younger folks are more enlightened, more aware. They're seeking more fulfillment. They're more mindful of where they are, where they want to be. So I think that's been the appeal. That's been a big part of the appeal for millennials and Gen Xers.
Congratulations on the 6th edition. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And you and your daughter Kelly worked really hard on that. What did you see as the need for this update?
Well, I think that, first of all, the last edition came out 7 years ago. So the world has changed, and the world of work certainly has changed a lot. I think that if I were to tag the most important differences have to do with automation, how many more jobs have become automated in part or entirely. Not something I endorse or feel good about, but that's the reality. And the second thing, especially for younger people, is that there is a movement from the old economy to the gig economy. And millennials especially have had to, for a variety of cultural reasons and economic reasons, have had to become more entrepreneurial, had to invent their own occupations or their own jobs. They've paid a price for it. I mean, they've traded off stability and security and especially benefits. I guess there really is no security anymore, but certainly benefits for more flexibility, for the opportunity to pursue their passions, which is very important to that generation. So I think that's the reason why there's such a resurgence of interest in the book among young people.
And I mean, as we've had to move to that gig economy, people have to sort of take more control or charge of their careers, which means they need to be more savvy about who they are and what their natural interests and talents are.
Absolutely. Yep.
So thinking about this in the context of the Great Resignation and what's happening at the moment, what do you think is driving people to resign in such numbers?
This is a great question and a huge challenge for our economy. And I think that I've been thinking about this question, and I think it's different for older people and for younger people. For older people, and I mean older, not like 80, but I mean 50, 60, 70, whatever. A lot of people have kind of faced their mortality. They recognize that they could get this virus and die or get sick. They've seen it happen, if not with their friends or relatives. They've certainly seen it in the news with horrendous numbers. So there's been a realignment. People saying, you know, do I really want to do this for the next 10, 15, 20, or 30 years? And a lot of those people are saying, no, I really don't, because life has become more precious. This is my theory. This is nothing I've read or discussed with other experts. It's just what I believe. Now, for younger folks, I think it's really different. I think that because of the internet and social media, they've been able to see all kinds of possibilities, to actually visualize what different opportunities are like, and not just imagine them, but actually see other people doing them. So I think for them, that's been a big driver to say, oh, there's other things to be doing out there than what I've been doing. And the other thing is, I think that those folks, millennials and Gen Zs especially, expect a higher level of individuality and value self-actualization more than other previous generations. So I think it's a confluence of things, and I think it's different for different people in different age groups.
So
Does that make sense?
let's start talking to, yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the career process. So how can you
Sure.
apply personality type to your career to help you find those things that people are looking for out of this process?
Well, I think that the thing we're all looking for is the best fit. You know, the best, the most fulfilling job is one that aligns with your personal values and your natural way of being in the world, with the activities you've got to engage in. So I think the reality is that it's a combination of understanding who you are, what are the things that are important to you. It's not just values, interests, and abilities. I think it's really kind of your innate essence, your innate drives and motivation, which is what personality type is about. And knowing early on can be really helpful, because then you don't waste a lot of time trying on stuff that you find out 5 years, 10 years later really was not a good fit.
And in addition to simply trying to make sure that you have a best fit with the job that you're doing, can you apply personality to actually the search for a new job or a new career?
Absolutely, and absolutely, and I'll tell you why. It's because personality type helps you identify your innate strengths and your blind spots, and we all have them. You know, we all have blind spots. They call them blind spots for a reason, because we don't see them. Other people often see them, but we just don't see them. So there are many aspects in the career search, such as researching, creating marketing materials like resumes, especially job interviews, that are directly related to your personality type. And some people, based on their type, are going to do some of those things better than other people. So if you understand that, you can tailor your job search to be more focused and get the maximum benefit of what you've got to offer.
And that's one of the things that your book talks about, how to tailor your job search process for each of the
Exactly.
types. Yeah,
Exactly.
I was looking at that the other day. So the other thing you talk about a lot is career satisfiers, what each type needs to feel satisfied in a career. Can you tell me more about those?
Sure. I discovered the notion of career satisfiers when I was writing Do What You Are One, the first edition, lo those many years ago. And I realized that there are certain aspects or elements of every job that certain types really need in order to be fed. And part of that comes out of their personality preferences, like extroversion or introversion. So extroverts need more contact with people. That's easy. Introverts need more alone time and more time to reflect before they have to act. Those are easy and they're important. But the real key thing is that every personality type has a main driver called in our language called the dominant function. And the dominant is really the thing that drives that person. So it's very important to feed the dominant. And so I was able to identify 10 career satisfiers for each of the 16 types. And they speak to what that person, if enough of those are present, the person finds fulfillment. If too many of those are absent, the person is unfulfilled.
So it's like a 70% at the sort of at the least type thing.
You know, I've never put a percentage on it. I think the reality is that, you know, career satisfiers deal with all kinds of aspects of the job. For some people, it's the environment. Is it a friendly place? You know, for feeling types, that's important. Other people, is it a place that I know exactly what's expected of me? I come in at a certain time, I do my job, I leave. That makes me feel good. For other people, it's the opportunity to be creative. For other people, it's the opportunity to be helpful. I mean, so I can't really say that, but I think that the magic, or part of the magic of Do What You Are, was we present a list of 10 career satisfiers for each type. And we say to you, we're not saying all these are equally important to you. or maybe not even or equally apply to you. But you pick out the top ones. And now when you go for a job, now that you know these things are really important, then I go, okay, does it do that? Does it do that? Does it do that? Knowing you're not going to get them all, but if you get enough, you're going to feel, this is a good place to wake up in the morning and go to.
It's funny you mentioned about starting job times because I hate to be told what time I have to show up for work. I want to be able to choose that for myself. So let's take this a bit more practical. I'm an ENTP. What are some of my career satisfiers and how might I need to apply those to find a fulfilling job or career?
Okay, let me break it down just a little bit for people who maybe aren't as fluent in ENFP, ISTJ language. So ENFP stands for extrovert, intuitive, thinking, perceiving type. Okay. And the dominant function of that type is extroverted intuition, possibilities. People like you, and you know who you are, really love possibilities. You see them everywhere. You like to keep your options open. So I would say some of the career satisfiers that will show up in our book are the opportunity to use your creative problem solving talents. Because you look at a situation and go, that'd be really good if we did this and made it different. That's a talent, right? Would you agree with that? Right? So
I do agree with that. But at the same time, and I think this is where sometimes we don't see our own strengths, I would undervalue that ability.
right. Well, because it comes naturally, it's a default setting. But think about now if you were in a job situation where you didn't get a chance to do that. Everything you had to do was rote. You couldn't change anything. You couldn't create anything. You just had to deal with what is. That I think would you break out in hives, right? Okay, so I rest my case. So it's problem solving. It's working in a job with there's a lot of variety. You don't want to be doing one thing. You want to be doing a lot of things. It's working in a fast paced environment where you get to act and be active. You've got a lot of energy and you want to surround yourself with energy. You also want to surround yourself with other creative people whom you like and respect, because respect is very important for people of your type. It's not just a popularity contest. It's I'd rather be respected necessarily than liked, because I'm so invested in being competent and developing my skills. I think that people like you would really like to have an opportunity to grow as a person and to grow in your career. So to continue to learn new skills, master new skills, opportunity to move up the ladder. You don't necessarily need to be in charge of everything and everyone, but you want to be doing interesting, meaningful work rather than kind of routine, rote, boring kind of details. How close am I?
Pretty close. I mean, respect over likability, absolutely. Variety is essential. And I love learning all the time. If I'm
Exactly.
not learning something new, then I do start to feel like I'm stagnating.
Right. So, this isn't magic and this isn't like, Paul, the wisdom of Paul Tieger. This comes right out of the work of Carl Jung and Isabel Myers, and it's personality type. But type is type. You're born with a personality type. And I would say you're not a whole lot different than the little 5-year-old that you were. And if you checked it out with some people who knew you then, they might agree with that. Right. So I believe that personality type is inborn, and you've always been a creative person. You've always been somebody who needs a lot of has a lot of energy. You've always been someone who wants to learn new things. So that stuff doesn't change.
And it's interesting you mentioned the creativity because as I worked through trying to figure out what was the most important thing in my career, creativity was it. And I had to find a job or career or work that was the central part. It couldn't be something I just did as a hobby outside of work. It had to be part of everything I did
Exactly.
or everything
And
I
that,
do.
and that, and excuse me, and that's because that's your dominant function. That's what I started saying about career satisfiers. It's not just that you're an intuitive; you are a super intuitive. Because that's your dominant, most important function.
So what advice would you give to someone looking to change careers right now?
Well, I tell you, I would suggest taking the advice of some other pretty smart guys. One was Socrates, who said, "Know thyself," and another one was Shakespeare in Hamlet, who said, "To thine own self be true." So those are two things that have really stood the test of time. And I think that as someone who's been studying, researching, writing about, thinking about this personality type stuff for a very, very long time, I'd say that it's really important its greatest gift, personality type's greatest gift, is to help people know themselves, their motivations, their values, their desires, what's important to them, and I think so. That's step one. Now I realize I'm biased about this, right? So, but the other things I would say is, and there's a lot of resources to find out your personality type. I would just suggest you find a good one, because on the internet there's a million of everything, and you have to be discerning about what you choose to believe in. The second thing is, for some people, career counselors are very helpful. As a person who was one for many years, I think if you get a good career counselor, especially one who recognizes the value of personality type and uses it in his or her practice, then I think you can get a lot of great insights that can lead you where you want to go.
And just speaking of career counselors, you mentioned that your first book really shifted the field of career counseling. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Sure. 25 years ago, when we started this, the predominant belief was that if you matched a person's values, interests, and skills, with a job, you'd get the right fit. The problem is all three of those are fluid, especially in young people when they make decisions that are going to put them on a path for their whole life. I mean, if you think back to what you knew about yourself when you were 18, right? And when you're 18, our frontal lobes aren't really quite developed yet, not for another 10 years perhaps for some of us, maybe longer for others of us. And the reality is that our values, interests, and skills are limited to what either our parents' values, or if we're rebelling the opposite of our parents' values, our interests and skills only what we've been exposed to at that early time in our life. So that's why so many people choose careers that 5 years later they go, I'm not happy, or 10 years yet later, I'm not happy. And then they're often stuck in, well, I got a kid now, and I got a mortgage now, and the job, based on the job market, I might not be as desirable, and that's how people get stuck in paths. So I think the reality is that, but personality type, in contrast to values, interests, and skills, is constant, and it's innate. You're born with a personality type. It doesn't change. And in my judgment, it is a more important aspect of a person in terms of career satisfaction and success than those three things by themselves.
Oh, so you'd weight it even higher than the other things?
I would. And so that was the paradigm change, because up until 25 years ago in Detroit, personality type was not even thought about as part of the mix, let alone the predominant factor. And now I think pretty much universally it is considered a very important factor.
Well, that has been a fascinating conversation, Paul. Thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. And I can't wait to get my hands on the latest copy of your book, Do What You Are. I'm really excited to read that. I do have an older copy, but I'm excited to get a new one too.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, and hope that the people who are listening to this got something out of it.
Oh, I'm absolutely sure they did. I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thanks so much.
Make sure to pick up a copy of Do What You Are, or check out truity.com for more information, or take one of our free career tests.